The placement of the asteroid Pallas Athena in the first house of a natal chart is a potent configuration that merges the intellect of the warrior queen with the very core of identity, physical presence, and worldly expression. In astrology, Pallas represents strategic thinking, pattern recognition, creative intelligence, justice, and the ability to solve complex problems through logic rather than raw emotion. When this archetype takes up residence in the first house, the house of the self, the persona, the physical body, and how one initiates action, it fundamentally alters how a person navigates the world. It creates an individual who views life not merely as a series of random events, but as a grand chessboard where every move matters. To understand Pallas in the first house, one must first understand the myth of Athena. Born fully formed and clad in armor from the head of her father, Zeus, Athena skipped the vulnerabilities of childhood. She represents an immediate, mature alignment with wisdom, strategy, and justice. In the first house, this fully armed energy is precisely how the native meets the world. From a young age, these individuals often project an air of self-sufficiency, intellectual authority, and readiness. They do not wait for others to define them, rather, they present themselves to society as highly capable, analytical, and objective beings. There is a distinct crispness to their aura. They are rarely seen as soft or easily swayed, instead, they command respect through a visible, striking mental clarity. This placement gives rise to a deeply ingrained need for intellectual autonomy. Because the first house rules the ego and the primary identity, the native's self-esteem is inextricably linked to their mental acuity and problem-solving capabilities. They pride themselves on being the person who can see the forest through the trees, discern hidden patterns, and offer the most logical path forward in times of crisis. This can make them exceptional leaders, pioneers, and advocates, particularly in fields that require sharp strategy, such as law, political science, activism, or systemic engineering. They don't just walk into a room, they assess it, mapping out the social dynamics and hidden power structures within seconds. Physically and visually, Pallas in the first house can manifest in a unique way. The first house governs the physical body and personal style, and with Pallas here, the native often adopts an aesthetic that reflects their structured, purposeful internal world. Their style may lean toward the functional, clean, and perhaps slightly androgynous or sharply tailored, reminiscent of armor that is both protective and elegant. There is often an intense, perceptive quality to their gaze. When they look at you, you get the distinct impression that they are not just seeing your face, but are actively analyzing your motives and reading your body language. However, the gift of an analytical mind at the forefront of the identity does not come without its challenges. Because the first house represents our immediate, instinctual reactions, a first house Pallas native may default to logic when an emotional response is actually required. When faced with personal crises, relationship conflicts, or emotional vulnerability, their first instinct is to compartmentalize and strategize. They may treat their own feelings, and the feelings of others, as puzzles to be solved rather than experiences to be felt. This can lead to a perception of coldness or detachment, alienating loved ones who crave raw, messy emotional connection rather than a beautifully structured 10-point plan to fix the relationship. Furthermore, the warrior energy of Athena in the house of self can make the native highly defensive or overly combative. They are hyper-aware of injustice and unfairness, and because this awareness sits in their first house, they take systemic or personal slights deeply personally. They may perceive disagreements as intellectual battles that must be won at all costs, turning casual debates into high-stakes psychological warfare. The native must learn that not every situation requires them to don their armor and shield, and that true wisdom sometimes involves stepping back and allowing life to unfold without trying to mastermind the outcome. In terms of creative expression, Pallas in the first house grants a remarkable ability to manifest ideas into physical reality. Pallas was the patron of master craftsmen and weavers, symbolizing the bridge between abstract artistic vision and tangible, skilled execution. With this energy in the house of initiation, the native is a master builder of their own destiny. They have the rare capacity to visualize a complex end goal and meticulously reverse engineer the steps needed to get there. Their creativity is rarely chaotic or abstract, it is orderly, geometric, and functional. They find immense joy in design, architecture, coding, or any craft where beauty and utility intersect. Ultimately, the journey of Pallas in the first house is about learning to integrate the brilliant, strategic mind with the rest of the human experience. When these individuals learn to balance their formidable intellect with emotional intelligence, they become truly unstoppable forces for change. They transform from mere defensive warriors into enlightened protectors and visionaries. By allowing their armor to be permeable, they can use their profound gift for pattern recognition not just to shield themselves from the world, but to heal, organize, and elevate the society around them. They stand as a living testament to the power of embodied wisdom, walking through life with their heads held high, their minds sharp, and their eyes fixed firmly on truth and justice. When Pallas Athena resides in the first house, the zodiac sign on the ascendant, or containing the asteroid, determines the specific flavor of the native's armor, their strategic style, and how they visually and intellectually project themselves to the world. Aries. With Pallas in the first house in Aries, strategy is lightning fast, competitive, and highly instinctual. This native projects the image of a spiritual or intellectual warrior who wins battles through sheer courage, initiative, and decisive action. Their physical presence is dynamic, and they use their mental sharpness as a weapon to pioneer new paths, though they must guard against impatience and an overly combative attitude. Taurus. Here, Pallas manifests as a highly grounded, deliberate, and pragmatic intellect. The native projects stability, patience, and a deep appreciation for form, beauty, and material security. Their strategy is slow and steady, focusing on building sustainable systems, architectural planning, or financial security. They use their physical presence and aesthetic choices to convey a sense of unshakable, enduring strength. Gemini. In Gemini, Pallas creates a persona centered on mental agility, wit, and linguistic mastery. The native meets the world as a perpetual student, communicator, or trickster strategist who solves problems through information gathering, networking, and clever wordplay. Their physical vibe is highly expressive, youthful, and restless, though they can struggle with mental scatteredness or over-intellectualizing simple emotions. Cancer. Pallas in Cancer filters strategy through intuition, emotional intelligence, and an instinct to protect. The native presents a caring but highly defensive exterior, using their pattern recognition to sense shifting emotional currents and defend the vulnerable. Their strategic brilliance lies in nurturing, creating safe spaces, and masterminding domestic or tribal security, though they may use intellect as a shield against their own deep sensitivity. Leo. This placement creates a highly visible, dramatic, and creative strategist. The native projects immense charisma, nobility, and creative authority, using their intellect to command attention and inspire others. Their strategy involves showmanship, creative leadership, and dignified self-expression. They take immense pride in their mental capabilities, ensuring their brilliance is recognized and celebrated on the world stage. Virgo. In Virgo, Pallas is exceptionally potent, heightening the native's innate gift for analysis, diagnostics, and organization. The native projects a clean, precise, and highly competent persona, viewing the world through a lens of problem-solving and service. Their physical style is often meticulous, and their strategy relies on flawless attention to detail, efficiency, and structural perfection, though they must avoid paralyzing perfectionism. Libra. With Pallas in Libra, the native projects an aura of grace, diplomacy, and artistic harmony. Their strategy is entirely relational, focused on restoring balance, mediating conflicts, and fighting for justice through legal or social avenues. They possess a striking eye for visual symmetry and design, presenting themselves with polished elegance, but they can get trapped in indecision by overanalyzing every side of a situation. Scorpio. This is a deeply piercing, investigative, and psychological placement. The native projects an air of intense mystery, power, and hypervigilance, looking right through superficialities to detect hidden motives and systemic corruption. Their strategy is covert, psychological, and transformative, excelling in crisis management and power dynamics, though they may struggle with deep-seated trust issues and chronic defensiveness. Sagittarius. In Sagittarius, Pallas expresses itself through big-picture thinking, philosophy, and ideological warfare. The native projects the persona of the wise seeker, adventurer, or truth-teller, fighting for justice on a grand, ethical scale. Their strategy involves broad concepts, teaching, and seeking horizons rather than focusing on minute details. They meet the world with optimistic enthusiasm, though they can sometimes come across as intellectually self-righteous. Capricorn. Pallas in Capricorn manifests as a master strategist of structures, institutions, and long-term goals. The native projects an image of profound maturity, authority, and executive competence. Their physical presence is disciplined and traditional, and they approach life like a seasoned general, using patience, duty, and relentless ambition to climb mountains and build enduring legacies, though they risk appearing cold or overly rigid. Aquarius. This placement creates the quintessential visionary, rebel, or utopian strategist. The native projects a highly unconventional, intellectual, and fiercely independent persona, often appearing slightly detached or ahead of their time. Their strategy is systemic, humanitarian, and innovative, aimed at reforming society or breaking outdated rules, though they may prioritize abstract ideals over personal, human connections. Pisces. In Pisces, Pallas operates through spiritual, artistic, and holographic pattern recognition. The native projects a gentle, fluid, and enigmatic aura, navigating the world using diffuse awareness, empathy, and creative imagination rather than rigid logic. Their strategy is non-linear and intuitive, winning by yielding, healing, or utilizing artistic expression to bridge divides, though they must work to keep their boundaries intact. The transit of Pallas Athena through the first house is a profound period of personal re-engineering, identity clarification, and strategic awakening. As the asteroid of wisdom, pattern recognition, justice, and tactical warfare crosses the ascendant and journeys through the house of self, the native is called to step out of emotional fog and into a period of acute mental clarity. If the natal chart represents the blueprint of who we are, a Pallas transit through the first house acts as a sharp, analytical lens focusing directly on that blueprint. It is a time when you are compelled to look in the mirror and ask, is the way I am presenting myself to the world effective, authentic, and strategically sound? During this transit, which occurs roughly every 4 to 5 years depending on Pallas's retrograde cycles, the individual experiences a noticeable shift in their aura and immediate approach to life. The first house governs our instinctual reactions, our physical body, and the mask we wear when meeting the world. When Pallas enters this space, that mask becomes infused with the energy of the warrior queen. You may find yourself feeling less passive, more intellectually independent, and far less willing to tolerate injustice or inefficiency in your personal sphere. The awakening of the strategic self. The most immediate effect of Pallas transiting the first house is an enhanced capacity for objective self-assessment. Problems that previously felt overwhelming or deeply entangled in emotional drama suddenly sort themselves into clear, manageable patterns. It is as if a mental chessboard is laid out before you, allowing you to see exactly where you have been miscalculating your moves in life. This transit demands that you take command of your own destiny. If you have been relying on others to fight your battles or define your identity, Pallas in the first house strips away that complacency. You are infused with a sense of mental autonomy. You begin to initiate projects, conversations, and life changes not from a place of raw impulse, as Mars might dictate, but from a place of calculated, deliberate wisdom. You become highly aware of cause and effect. You realize that how you initiate action today dictates the territory you will occupy tomorrow. Redefining the persona and physical presence. Because the first house rules the physical body and personal style, this transit frequently triggers a desire to alter one's appearance to reflect a more empowered internal state. This is not the superficial makeover of a Venus transit. A Pallas makeover is functional, streamlined, and intentional. You may feel compelled to cut your hair, adopt a more tailored or minimalist wardrobe, or shed physical clutter. The aesthetic goal under this transit is to project capability, intelligence, and readiness. The body itself is viewed as an instrument of your will, leading many people to adopt disciplined health or fitness regimens that emphasize strength, agility, and mental focus. Furthermore, your very gaze changes. People may remark that you look more focused, intense, or perceptive. You are practicing active looking, scanning your environment for patterns, reading the body language of others, and assessing the hidden dynamics in every room you enter. You present yourself as someone who cannot be easily fooled or manipulated. Activism, justice, and the warrior archetype. Pallas is inherently tied to the defense of truth and justice. When she transits your house of self, you become a living advocate for these principles. You may find yourself thrust into leadership roles where you must defend your own rights or the rights of others. This transit gives you the courage to stand up to authority figures or systemic imbalances that you previously chose to ignore for the sake of peace. Your communication style during this period becomes sharper and more forensic. You don't just argue, you dismantle opposing viewpoints with cold, hard logic and undeniable facts. This makes it an exceptional time for legal battles, academic defenses, business negotiations, or any arena where you must pitch your ideas and defend your intellectual property. You possess the unique ability to remain cool under pressure, using strategy rather than emotional outbursts to win the day. The shadow side, the danger of the intellectual shield. While the gifts of this transit are immense, Pallas in the first house carries distinct psychological hazards. Because the first house represents our immediate, instinctual responses, you may default so heavily to logic that you completely alienate your emotional self and the people around you. When the warrior's armor becomes too thick, it ceases to protect and begins to paralyze. During this transit, there is a tendency to view personal relationships as tactical problems to be solved rather than emotional bonds to be felt. If a partner or family member approaches you with grief, vulnerability, or chaotic emotion, your instinct under this transit may be to offer a cold, analytical critique or a structured solution, rather than empathy. You may project an aura of detachment or intellectual arrogance, making others feel judged or cross-examined in your presence. Additionally, the hypervigilance of Pallas can turn into paranoia if misplaced. You may look for hidden motives where none exist, treating casual social interactions as battlefield maneuvers. If you find yourself constantly on the defensive, viewing every disagreement as an intellectual war that you must win to preserve your ego, you are experiencing the shadow of this transit. Integrating the wisdom. The ultimate lesson of Pallas Athena transiting the first house is the embodiment of wisdom. It asks you to bridge the gap between abstract intellect and physical action. It is not enough to know the right path, you must walk it. It is not enough to recognize a pattern of self-sabotage, you must strategically dismantle it. As Pallas moves through this house, use this time to organize your life, streamline your goals, and step into your mental authority. Clear away the emotional noise that has clouded your judgment. Don your armor deliberately, but remember that true wisdom also knows when it is safe to lay the shield down. By the time Pallas exits your first house, you will have successfully redefined how you meet the world, standing taller, seeing clearer, and moving forward with the unshakable confidence of a master strategist. Subscribe, like, and share.